I'm a professional editor and I've always wanted to expand my horizons by talking to other editors and sound designers, music composers, visual effects supervisors, essentially all the magicians who silently and invisibly work behind the scenes. This series is an attempt to make the invisible artists visible. I hope you enjoy the conversations.
In today's episode, I have with me motion design directors and VFX supervisors Yashoda and Vijesh. Hi, guys. This is so good to have the both of you here with me. I really want to expand my knowledge of visual effects and motion design and understand what happens behind all of what we see or as I see from an editor's POV. I think it'll be really helpful for me to understand exactly what goes on in your studio. So, with that in mind, let's start with a little about the two of you. How you're a little about your education, and have you had any formal training in this field?
Yashoda, ladies first.
I finished my graduation like every other good Tamram girl, and I was not much interested in. I was intrigued by science, so I did learn biotech, but I knew that I couldn't pursue a career in biotech, and there was a year period in my life where I was doing nothing basically for 6 to 8 months, and my dad was like, there's this education exhibition happening in Ruias. Just go there and see, explore. If there's something that piques your interest, then you can go and figure out what to do for the rest of your life. So I went there just because I was sitting at home and I was pretty bored. And I went there and I found this diploma program that at that point it was called Big Aims. Currently it's called Reliance Aims. So it's this big animation studio. They were starting a franchise in Andheri, and they were willing to teach me everything about filmmaking, from script writing to visual effects to editing to pretty much everything. So I was pretty intrigued because I saw the video that was put on the display at the exhibition, and I was like, "Ye kya hai? I want to do this." How do you'll teach me how to do that explosion? You'll teach me how to cut a video? And they were like, "Yeah, we'll teach you everything. So come join us." And that's where it all started. The course was for like a year and a half, and throughout the course I learned like I said, all the steps of filmmaking. And but I realized over years that motion design, writing, and narrative based fiction content creation is what that I really like. But having been formally trained, understanding many of the softwares from the beginning really helped me. It helped me to get that one step ahead of the rest of the lot. So even though a lot of people were still exploring, I knew where to find the right sort of tutorials. If there was something that I was stuck at, I could always go to Andrew Kramer's website, which was videocopilot.com. And that's where I learned a lot of the other things. I learned how to create magic using these software. So that's where I started. Then initially I did a little bit of, assisted directors in like ad films, and I was also in the art department. Was still looking for work because motion design industry didn't exist as such back in when I started. And then finally I landed up at QK Digital Media, which is this company run by the late Samir Bangara, was no more, unfortunately, and A.R. Rahman and Shekhar Kapoor. And I used to be involved in the production. We used to create these music videos for YouTube artists. And, that was when I really got to explore all of my motion design artists inside me, and also VFX, because a lot of the music videos were shot against chroma screens, and that's where all my skill set sort of came in handy. And that's also the place where I met Vijesh, because he had come there to meet my supervisor for a meeting, and we were just like, "Hey, you do cool stuff. Hey, you do cool stuff too." So we just sort of added each other on Facebook. And then once I felt like I was a lot more professionally ready, I pinged him and I was like, do you want an After Effects artist or what? Because he had put up a post on Instagram stating that he's looking for After Effects artist, and I was like, I'm totally up for joining hands with you, and I want to do something more than what I've been doing here. I want to work in films and the big cinema, which is the big dream. When you want to get into the film industry, that's what you want to get into. So I was like, you're doing films, I want to work in films, let's join forces. And we had a nice meeting over cookies and milk, and by the end of the meeting we just became best friends and we started working together. That's my journey. And then for the past how many years has it been? 8 years we've been working together. Yeah. Vijesh, you want to take over and give your side of the story?
So yeah, we both have the very common guru, Andrew Kramer. Basically, he used to run this website, videocopilot.net, and he used to have a lot of tutorials on it, on Video Copilot as well as on YouTube and stuff like that. And I used to be a copywriter. I was not here. I was working in Bahrain. That's where I was brought up actually, and my parents were always there. So I kind of just like got into copywriting because I knew it's like a creative avenue, and like I can do something different. So I was working for like all the popular ad agencies, O&M and Saatchi and everything. But I wanted to make short films of my own, and like me and my friends were big film enthusiasts, especially Bollywood enthusiasts, and we would love like making these comedy trope filled like what do you call remakes as such, casting our own friends and everything. So there's lots of them have like major action sequences like,
and they're hilarious. Sorry to pick
yeah.
They're hilarious. You should check it out whenever you have to.
There was like a ban of toy guns in Bahrain, so I eventually had to use our hands in this full-on action sequence, and muzzle flashes were coming out of it, full legit muzzle flashes and explosions. But yeah, so I used to do that as a side thing, and then this one friend of mine, Srinivas Sundarajan, he actually kind of changed my life. Like, so him and me were in the same band when I came to Bombay to do my BCom. So we were in a band called Barf Cake, and basically we used to play like heavy metal music. And also with us was Vishwesh Krishnamurthy, who's a ad filmmaker. And so basically they used to tell me like, you've got all this skill, what are you doing over there? Come down here, we'll figure something out. And then Srinivas told me that he's making a feature film on his own called the Untitled Karthik Krishnan Project. And basically he needed help in post-production because he wasn't getting funds for it. So he had shot it. It was his mumblecore independent film, and he shot it with his friends over the period of a year, and it was ready on edit, but he didn't have the funds to grade it, to do sound design, to do titling and all that stuff. And I'm like, hey, I can do that. So he's like, why don't you come down here, we'll figure it out. And he basically had one patch of the film left which he couldn't shoot because the actors were not available anymore and stuff like that. So he was like, I need help in rewriting it also. And I was like, yeah, cool, I can do that. So I came, I quit my job basically. I told my creative director that, what, my dad's never going to let me resign. So can you fire me? And he's like, yeah, okay, no problem. So he fired me. And then I moved here. And I immediately started working on the film with Srinivas. And like, I kind of filled all those gaps that I was actually having fun doing it because like, it was not a comedic kind of thing anymore. It was more serious. Like I was actually working on sound design. I was actually working on grading and doing some visual effect shots and all that stuff. And then I had fun doing it, and I realized that this is great. And the film screened. It actually released via PVR's director's rare. No, it released theatrically. And Anurag Kashyap came for one of the screenings, and he was like, "Are who did the sound design? I want this guy," and all that. So I'm like, I did it, but I did it on Premiere. So does that count? Because I wasn't like a legit sound designer. He's like, oh, okay. So what do you really like to do? And I said, I like visual effects. I like grading. I like motion branding. I didn't call it that, but I knew that it was something that kind of thing. So we said, okay, come over, meet us at that point. There was this AKFPL, which was in Aram Nagar. It was a small bungalow, and there were a lot of things being made at that point of time. Like which were more corporate in nature. Like there were a lot of short films, there were a lot of commercials and all that. And also, Anurag was like working on this thing, Gangs of Wasipur at that point in time. He was just finalizing it, you know. So I happened to just fall in the right place. And I made, I basically did a lot of collaborations with directors like Shlok Sharma and, Vasan Bala, Neeraj Gevan, who were all basically Anurag sir's ADs. And he just, I got to do a lot of things at that point of time. There were like several, at least 20, 25 short films that I worked on. So it helped me hone my, VFX as such, which I used to do on After Effects only. But also have like a holistic view of production because I used to go on set. I got the experience of being a VFX supervisor without any experience beforehand, and that was great. That's actually what everyone says is true. Like no matter what film school you go to, no matter what course you do, the set is where you learn everything, and that became very important for me. And I feel like the next question Anurag sir asked me was like, I'm doing Gangs of Wasipur anyway, so you're coming over. So I said yes, of course. Like he said, I can't be, you can't be the VFX supervisor because obviously this is a very big film. There's period recreations and stuff like that. And so you will have to work under Gagan Vishwakarma, who's my go-to VFX guy. And he, at that point in time, he was like just out of Pixian, but most of the work was happening at Pixian only. So he's like, work with this guy and, do titles for the film or something like that and do whatever you want. So I said, can I do the behind the scenes also? Because that way I get to see, I become like a fly on the wall kind of thing for the whole shoot. So that 2.5, 3 months that I was there was like breathtaking experience. Like I can't even believe that, I've been through that and I learned from there, and so like, then I realized what it is actually to be like a real supervisor on set and like take all these calls along with the DOP and the director and figure out the entire post production pipeline on the basis of that, So that was great experience for me. And yeah, then after that, I just came back to Bombay and then I started working in television and stuff like that because like now I needed money, like, so I did a lot of like shows like MTV's, Sound Tripping and like The Doerists and like a lot of music based content. And this one show called Bring on the Night, which I feel was like one of the best shows that was made back then, which had like Arjun Mathur and Patrick Graham is playing a white guy in it basically, and there's Hussein, the writer Hussein. So he's in that as well as one of the characters. It's a very interesting show, but yeah, again on that I got to be like a proper VFX supervisor. I also did color grading on the show. So that's where like I realized that what, I can go independent now. I don't need to work under a banner. I can start taking up work as a vendor, and I did that. So then at some point I did cross that service tax threshold, and I had to come up with a name for the company. And at that point there was this plugin that everyone was like, it was a thing that everyone was experimenting with called Plexus. And apparently, and basically, it just means that it connects dots. It sort of felt like, that's what we do. We connect.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
So I named it Plexus, and then like a couple of years of doing it, like I realized that it's more about making good relationships with people and collaborating with them. It's less about how much work you've done or how much technical achievement you've made, because that's only for you, and when I met Yashoda, that was reinforced because for her it was all about like the collaborations and the fun that we have in like doing something new, with like making your clients mind blow, blowing your clients minds. I hope you edit that. but they come to you with something like, oh, I want this, and then you go like, I can do that, and they're like, how, and then we don't know how, most of the time we don't know. And then there's a lot of like, okay, what if we do this, or what if we do that, or what if we, and sometimes it's the simplest thing that actually looks the greatest. So that kind of thing is something that we've become very comfortable with. Like most of the time, we get a brief or a script and we break it down and we're like, can we even do this? And then we just figure it out over time. So,
Yeah, I think that's like for most of us, no? Because the initial thing when you get a script till date, it's very unnerving.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
You're always like, can I do this? Yeah, I totally relate.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. But so is it fair to say, therefore, that Yashoda, you have a certain formal training and Vijesh, you kind of have learned more on field? So it's sort of like a best of both worlds
Yeah.
situation here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. It
so.
balances
That's,
things out.
yeah, that's ideal.
Yeah. Because when I started out, I knew many of the technical bits, but my aesthetic
Mm.
was still in development, I would say. I was not really, I mean, I had a general, I think I had a good sense of doing things in a particular way. I know, like, okay, if you have this particular problem technically, then you need to do this first. So I knew the steps, I knew the plugins we'll need. When I would work with Vijesh, you would be like, what is the shot that we're doing? So my whole process of approaching work changed because it became very visual oriented. It became like, okay, this is the end product that we want to see. This is what needs to make it look photoreal or cinematic, and that's what we need to achieve. Then it's like, oh, now I know where I'm getting to. So, and I know this is how you do it. So it sort of helped both of us grow, and that's why I think the collaboration also has lasted this long, because we've always had those gaps in that we could fill, that okay, this is the new challenge that I didn't know aesthetically is. I mean, there are so many things that I don't know, that I didn't know, that it is wrong to mask things a particular way. It's wrong to put vignettes a particular way, which I learned with Vijesh, and hopefully I also helped him in a lot of manner where it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
come on,
absolutely. Like Yashoda is a master in setting pipelines.
thanks.
Like she knows where things can go wrong and how, and she predicts it like months in advance. And she goes like, "This is how we should structure things, or we're going to go into like a full blown disaster." So she's really,
Which is, yeah, I think in like the way we work right now, when OTT and with the features, it's so hectic that I think that's a key skill, right?
yeah, yeah. It's very important. It's
It's
very important.
true. And I think it's I wish that I had more people to be able to be on the same page when it comes to pipeline with it, which is one hiccup that I face. But I feel like unless you do that, you can't really approach things practically, because as artists and creators, we all are very creative, even though we are in the technical side of filmmaking. But this deadline, this project timeline is something that weighs on all of us. And unless we are able to see through it and break it down, it gets very difficult to be able to, for some artists to start and for some artists to finish. So I think seeing that pipeline through is very important, and that's something that I enjoy figuring out. Over the years I've learned that I've started enjoying figuring things out for the entire project, and it's come in handy for all of our projects.
Yashoda's so zen when it comes to places where people usually like bite their nails and like, pull their hair out. She's just like, no, no, don't worry. We need 4 minutes.
Wow.
That's the minimum we can do it with. You give us lesser time, you will get lesser of a good result. So that's up to you. You take the call. But I'm telling you, we need this much time. So she says it like that, and I'm like, how? No, maybe we should prioritize this. Maybe we should shoot it this way. Maybe this can help us. And she's like, chill. It's not needed. We can do it like this. There's no other way.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have one person balance that out, because otherwise we'll all just be spiraling. And in post production, as we know, it's very easy to just for things to spiral, and it's a domino effect, right? But
Yeah.
do you think, Yashoda, it's interesting that you say that you don't find enough people who can collaborate well with you to set this pipeline? Do you think a large part of it has to do with us not being super involved from the prep stage in either scheduling or in just having these discussions with the director or the producer, as it may be?
I think it's multiple things, uh, first thing is, of course, like, I mean, not, I don't know if how many post production professionals would be really interested in being involved at an early stage, because if for bigger studios, the producer there would be like, अरे shoot भी नहीं हुआ है अभी, हमें क्यों lock कर रहे हो, क्योंकि I don't know where I'm going to be in 6 months or 8 months time, so some people don't prefer to be involved earlier on. But of course, like independent artists like us, independent studios like us, would want to, because it helps us plan things accordingly. So it's like a mixed bag. So it depends on the collaborators, like for Andolan or Phantom, they always call us when the script is ready, or even if sometimes they're writing. Now it's become like, I'm writing this, so have a look at it, give me your feedback. So they like us to be involved very earlier on, and some people discover us quite late in their stage of production. So once the edit is locked, is when they come to us, कि हमें title sequence चाहिए, so what to do, So so primarily it's that, I think, because this boom of OTT happened very recently, and still a lot of people are trying to understand and figure the pipeline, because I don't think until 2010 the post production supervisor or post producer was such a big important role that people studied about it, and did their research, because not much VFX happened, not much other creative editing, or like not even like 8 episode editing would happen, because editors would get their own time with the director to work on the film. So there is that aspect also. There is this so it's like a couple of things which makes like people like me find it difficult to collaborate with someone in terms of scheduling. And also because there is a lack of knowledge, there is also in a way a lack of taking us seriously, would be the right way I would say. So if I say I need 4 months to do it, it comes from a space of understanding what work goes into it, right? But it's most in many cases dismissed, because it's like it's a production call, it's not a supervisor's call, which is not how it should be. Like when your producers need to take the call of first asking your editors, asking your VFX supervisors, asking your sound designer, musician, and then setting a pipeline of, okay, these guys are telling me on an average you would need 6 months or 4 months, and that's the schedule that I need to stick with. But it's usually the reverse. It's like we are releasing in 2 months, so you have like a month and a half, and then you have like 3 weeks to do it, and that's where it gets problematic.
A lot of times there's no release also, like for OTTs and all that, after the show's ready and it's already gone on to their whatever servers and stuff like that, 3-4 months later only the show's coming out. So it's very weird. Like we're mostly blindly going into something, like a post producer sets this time and says that you have to deliver within it, but it doesn't work. Like sometimes one shot can take 6 months sometimes, depending on the complexity of the CG, the fluid dynamics, whatever, some shots take forever to crack. And that's why there's so much inconsistency in Indian VFX. Like, and if you compare it to like a Marvel or something like that, there's not that much of an inconsistency, because they spend so much more time, I mean, in the global scale, obviously, even that time is shrinking, but we never had time to begin with. For us, all the stuff is like, abhi chahiye ya kal chahiye tha. That's a joke that they pick up and they say, like, we wanted it yesterday.
Yeah.
So we can only do that weak corporate laugh, ha ha ha, and then move on to like reality. But like that happens a lot, and Yashoda is right. Like I feel like when someone's making a film that depends on VFX, or like a series that depends on the VFX, then they need to make time for it and set budgets for it, and yeah, that doesn't happen,
It does. It doesn't. Yeah. So, since you mentioned designing title sequences, I think even the concept of these elaborate title sequences has been fairly recent. I think early on it used to be just images and almost like a song that's playing over shots of birds flying. That used to be a title sequence. So this emergence of elaborate title sequences, is this something that you consciously kind of gravitated towards and said, this is what we want to, this is what interests me, and this is what I want to do?
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. So over that milk and cookies conversation, me and Vijesh were talking about all the films that we love and the title sequences we love. And at that point, um, Lijo Pellicer, the well-renowned director, was doing this film called Double Barrel, which no one saw. And then after that, all of us films became like award-winning, massive films.
International acclaimed films,
But but we sort of met him in this film, and at that point, he had approached Vijay to do this title sequence for Double Barrel, and it was a very interesting concept because what we had to come up with is like there are two diamonds in the film, Laila and Majnu. One is yellow, one is red, and we sort of had to reimagine the origin of these diamonds and how they end up meeting in the beginning of the film. So we took liberties of on all the historical events and mythological events and sort of blended it and made this fictionalized sequence, which is funny. It's sort of like it's got gags in it, but it's also visually very interesting to see all of these time periods, and how these diamonds sort of meet in the beginning of the film. So that's where we started. That's the first thing that we started working together on. And at that point, we were like, "This is cool, man! Like we should do title sequences, and then we should do our own like music videos and films. Whatever we want to do, have fun."
Also, because I feel like title sequences is one place where the director leaves you. It's because they're not comfortable with the craft. They're not comfortable with 2D or 3D animation or whatever. Like so they go like, this is your zone. So you come up with a concept, you only execute it. So we get to play uh, directors, we get to play writers, we get to play animators, we get to play a lot of things in that one sequence. And that really enticed us because then we're
They're
not
just not just executing
Yeah,
things, no? There's an application of an ideation.
yeah,
yeah,
But
yeah.
guys, tell me something. It's insane for me to consider. Like when I watched any title sequence, I love the material that you guys have also worked on. What is your starting point? Like, how do you get to that point where, and title sequences are so complex. A lot of the stuff that you guys have done is very complex.
Mm.
What is your starting point when you're thinking over how to create that title sequence?
It's usually the story. Like it has to like basically a title sequence is the branding of this film or series, right? And that branding needs to basically somehow give you the experience of the entire film or show within a very short period of time, right? So it's just kind of like make taking this entire series of film and bringing it down to like a paragraph of an idea of what it is, what it represents, what it talks about, what are the core themes,
yeah,
then bringing a visual aesthetic to it. So that's something that takes a lot of like it takes 2 to 3 weeks to crack a concept sometimes. We come up with various ones, and then it becomes a collaboration between the filmmaker and us, like, okay, these are the concepts that I relate with, this one might look cool, this one stands out, but this is what I can afford. That happens also a lot. So eventually it becomes that. But yeah, condensing it is a lot of fun because like you have to make it all boil down to one main idea which happens during the sequence. And that's a really cool thing to crack. And I guess like my advertising background helped me way, because even commercials are like that. You have to take a big there's a selling kind of agenda, and you have to boil that down into a more holistic point and make it about something else but hide something else in there. So I kind of got used to that. And Yashoda very like miraculously was able to adapt to it so quickly, and like come up with right now the past year and a half Yashoda has been directing all the sequences. because I decided I want to take some time off and just produce it and like make sure that, because we were both doing it, we were both producing and directing, and it was getting to us, especially because we work together and there are multiple projects. So we decided, like, for this year, I'll take on all the producing responsibilities, and she'll take on all the direction. So all the concepts for like Decoupled, for example, or the upcoming show Fuzzy, and there's this new PS1, which is Mani Sir's new film. So all of these are entirely Yashoda's concepts, and she's able to do it quite well. Like, it surprises me also how well she's able to do it sometimes.
But that's because I worked with you on most of the ones that we did before.
Yeah,
That's where I got the idea. And like you said, it's true. It's like capturing the whole film or series in like those 40 seconds or 20 seconds, getting shorter and shorter by the day. And it's like problem solving, right? Again, like it's design thinking again, and that's what's really exciting uh, for us. And for me, I like more abstract concepts, and I like not saying the same thing in a very straightforward way, even though at the core of it, the concept is simple. It's like a one-liner concept, but visually, it's a lot more layered. That's the kind of stuff that I like exploring and doing. So title sequence is that space where I get to do that. I'll never be, if I ever made films or music videos, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that because it'll get too much for anybody to sort of, comprehend what's happening. But in a title sequence, you're forgiven. Like, it could be like you put people's head exploding and it's fine. Like, it's colorful explosions. It's fine because it's visually rich and it's fun to watch. And that's the audience for title sequence. So, yeah.
Also, you mentioned that you guys sort of ended up being VFX supervisors as well, right? So that wasn't your primary intention when you were starting off, but then you sort of realized that you can also do this.
Yeah.
So can you tell me tell me actually what is the role of a VFX supervisor firstly?
So I think, like, because we are able to do these things that kind of they are CG and animation in a way, but then there's a lot of VFX as well involved in those kind of things. So because we were able to pull that off well, there are a lot of directors who've approached us in commercials and stuff like that to do VFX, which we did quite well. And then, because you've done VFX on a bunch of things, you'll make a reel, right? And that reel's out there, so someone will approach you. So that way we got approached a lot to do VFX. And the first full film we did was Raman Raghav 2.0, right, Yashoda?
Yeah.
So again, in that, it was a 1 crore film, and they just wanted to lift the look of it and give more. There are a lot of shots in which they wanted to give more detail, which they couldn't on shoot and stuff like that. So that became like a problem solving thing only, and it had to be done within a very limited timeline. But we came up with a lot of really cool ideas to solve these things. Like, there are day for night shots, like there are massive skyline shots where the drone cameras are moving and revealing cities, and we had to make them night. So a lot of that happened, like some of it happened on After Effects only. We didn't even go to Nuke or like a traditional studio. So that kind of problem solving helped us, because eventually then when Phantom produced Ghoul, which is Patrick's, it was a film, but it turned out to be a series later. They contacted us and they said that, what about this? Can you do something with this? There are creature effects and stuff like that. And we were like, yeah, that'll be fun to do. And then it became about, okay, if we have to morph this guy's face into something, then how do we do that? And then the science behind it and the science of how to shoot it so that it looks, so that what we get on set is appropriate, where to place the tracking marks, what kind of tracking markers. Eventually, we settled for black bindis. That's what we used on his face for the morphing and all that. So all of that was a fun process to learn. And fortunately, because we are able to weave that magic with animation and CG, we were given that chance, and we didn't let anyone down. So we kept getting more work. That's all.
Yeah, and like whatever we did, so basically for motion design title sequence, you're literally creating the shots from scratch, right? And VFX is pretty much the same thing. Like you have to sit with the DOP and the director to sort of break it down. So there are many parallels in what we do in both the departments, both in motion design as well as visual effects. And even in visual effects, what we like to do more is the creative visual effects. Like a film like Ghoul and a film like Raman Raghav. Raman Raghav had more seamless VFX, so it looks very. The aesthetic of the film is that it's rooted in reality, right? So if there is a VFX shot, it can't be that one shabang shot. It has to be so seamless that you feel the blood is real. For Ghoul, we had to design the creature and then figure out, along with the prosthetic team, the DOP, director, as to how to okay, now we've designed this creature, how do we get the creature on camera, and how much of it we'll be able to achieve practically, how much of it we'll have to work on in post. So it was sort of like breaking down shots. So these are the primary roles that a visual effects supervisor does, for any project. So, and that happens for both the departments, both motion design and VFX. And that's why I think our transition was also not like a big leap, because it's pretty much the same thing that you end up doing.
Even for a show like Leila, like eventually we needed like a behemoth to execute it. Like we needed a prime focus to execute it because there's just so much work, right? But when it came down to the creative part of it, like we had to create a lot of things. Like there were design challenges, like how a city would be if in the future it is barricaded, or if they're planning to make a dome over one city, then what would that look like? What their communication devices would look like. So all of these are design issues that a VFX house, at least at that point of time, didn't have solutions for, because they don't have a design head or like a design department, you know. So we very comfortably filled that gap, and we were able to show them what is the right way to approach it, what is the right kind of design for it, and it was a process, but it was great to collaborate with like a huge team like Prime Focus, and supervise that. That was like almost a dream come true, because I always wanted to do like a big show with a lot of like almost seamless looking VFX.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that you collaborated with Prime Focus. Tell me a little bit on how you delegate work to various teams, and what is the breakdown of jobs that you're giving your teams?
So I mean, I feel like no film or no series should be the work of only one team of people. Like for example, if there's a show that has a lot of VFX, it shouldn't be given to just one VFX vendor. We feel like different VFX houses specialize in different things, and they should then be contacted for what they're good at. So I feel like I actually shouldn't give examples and stuff like that, so I wouldn't go there. But like basically, that's the thing that we feel like is the right way to approach it. And whatever projects we do, we delegate it like that. We find out, we keep track of the films, we keep looking at show reels, and we figure out, okay, now this company is really good with particle simulations, so they're going to do really well in this scene, or this VFX house is great with fluid simulations. These guys do very good creatures, these guys do very good roto prep, match moving and stuff like that. So we know there are different people who are experts at different things, so we decide always beforehand that, okay, if you're breaking down a screenplay and we're breaking down shots, VFX shots, then we know that each shot is not going there could be one shot in which there are like 6 different VFX vendors working, and Indian producers are not comfortable with that. They always want one point of contact. That's why they're more comfortable giving off jobs to one production, one VFX studio. And that's where I feel the downfall begins. I feel like they need independent supervisors who are not going to think मेरा ही studio में सब कुछ होगा. They need supervisors who look at the show creatively and break it down, and then they need people who then figure budgets accordingly and like try to interface with each of these houses and try to get the best deals and stuff like that. And then, so it's sort of like a mix between a post producer and a VFX, a creative visual effects supervisor. That's what is really needed for achieving the good, like a balanced VFX kind of look.
Yeah. And also, like, it's easier to uh, distribute these depending on, like, because we know artists in every department. Like, we know certain artists who are very good with character concepts, we know artists who are very good with backgrounds, we see, like, and for this we are constantly on either Behance or Instagram, and we are on some nowadays even on LinkedIn. There's a lot of networking that happens, and basically we start off being fans of these artists, and then we fortunately end up being collaborators with them. But we understand artist strengths, and we help them use that potentially well in a project. So that's how we assign the work. Also, that's how we distribute the work as well. Like, we know, okay, we need this guy if this is the challenge, we need a character creature design, we need this artist to be doing it. And fortunately they are always happy to do it, collaborate with us, so it works out that way. And we need this particular studio to do roto prep, these studio artists to do comp, and sometimes it's also dictated by budgets, because we know if the budgets
Most of the time it's dictated.
so if the budgets are not too high, we know that we need to look out for more independent studios which will just focus on one little thing and sort of then bring it all together and give the final product to the client. Fortunately, with us being involved in projects, even Netflix and most of the OTTs were okay with distributing the work. We keep our pipeline very transparent. We let our clients know that this is how we're going to do it, and we know that this is going to work. And fortunately, they trust us, and they're like, okay, cool. I know you thought this through. This is going to work, and then we get to execute it in that manner. Like Vijesh does say, there should be more openness about this as well, which I think will happen, because after films like Brahmastra and many other VFX heavy films that will come out, the approach is also going to change, because they did end up doing that for Bahubali, for Brahmastra, where they collaborated with multiple smaller studios, and you can see them on the credit list.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you think it also reduces the workload on individuals who are working in VFX teams? Because I remember back in the day when I was an assistant editor and we used to visit VFX studios, people were sleeping on the floor, not going home. It was horrific to watch artists, VFX artists, in these little, cubby holes in the studio, just working into the night, sleeping there, eating there, their showers installed. This person is not going to go home. Their showers in the bathroom. I feel maybe this kind of workflow also helps to an extent to manage these like timelines, and a person can actually have a life, or no, not so much.
If you're in VFX, you won't have a life.
Yeah.
That is guaranteed. Like, it's not just an Indian issue, it's like a global issue right now. I feel like there is no, like, if you notice any industry and any, like, even in terms of contract law, there are no unions for VFX anywhere. And you know why, right? Because every company is competing so badly with each other, and all VFX artists have to go through a lot of hell. So I mean, you've seen the recent articles about how badly Marvel manages its VFX pipeline.
I was going to ask you that, because it was all over my Twitter feed. And they were criticizing it was for She-Hulk in particular, one particular episode. And they really criticized the quality of the VFX. And yes, also the way that it's, shockingly Marvel VFX teams are.
Yeah, everything is so, like, packed, like the edits change until the last second, and until the edits are locked, you can't really work on the shots. And then, like, they keep changing their mind about things, and like nothing is locked until that final last couple of months or something like that. And that is hell for VFX teams anywhere, no matter how big your team is. This kind of issue is always going to be there, because I feel like creators are always given more importance in the entire production pipeline than any other team. Like it's always the heads, like the producer, director, writer. They're always given the biggest, the most amount of time.
Yeah.
In the entire pipeline, and that kind of really gets in the way. And a technician can't be fully proficient on his job if he's given so little time.
Yeah.
And I feel like in India we don't have any bad VFX artists, we don't have any bad VFX houses, we just have bad producers. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
all the producers, I might not get work after this, but I'm just telling you this because it's unfair that all the blame is put on VFX houses. If you give enough time and money to anything, Brahmasta's proof of this. If you give enough time and money to anything, then it's going to shine. It's going to look good.
Yeah.
If you contact an artist for how good their work is, then you should give them the time and the money that they deserve to produce art. Otherwise, they can't do it.
Yeah.
There's that one pie chart which I keep showing, sending to my clients on WhatsApp, which is like either time or money or you know,
Quality.
so quality. So you can't have any, like it has to have an equilibrium, right? So that's the scenario. I feel like even with She-Hulk, like if you compare She-Hulk episodes, have you watched any of them? So if you compare Hulk in the episodes, he looks so good.
Yeah.
Like just the level of detailing.
Yeah. And why? Because they've had years to work on that guy. Like he's been there are various stages of what this guy looked like. And the last couple of films, they've aced him in photorealism. They've got like a proper, this kind of beard happening. And so he looks proper photoreal. And you cut to the other shot and, the other reverse angle, and she's not good, because they've had so little time to work on her. So you can't blame them for the VFX being shoddy or whatever. I feel you should blame the producers who didn't give enough time to execute the job.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say I'll never judge a bad VFX on the VFX house. Because I know, having worked in the industry, I know that most of these easily panned or hey, bad VFX, itna acha kam, realistic nahi lag raha hai, is very easy for people to say.
Yeah.
But the decision makers are to be blamed because and in many cases, it's unfortunately not even the producers, it's the executive from the network and the studio heads who treat most of these, like She-Hulk is now treated as a product as opposed to an art project. Like MCU is also, a lot of people are cribbing about the quality of VFX in MCU is because it's become like this churning out, factory.
Yeah.
They just want to release one product. Abhi, this is the season.
They have a show or a series releasing every month. Disney basically has, so there's Star Wars and then there's the MCU and there's one show or the other releasing every month now, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like there are any newer VFX houses in the world. It's the same amount.
Yeah.
So obviously it's going to impact the quality,
Basically the approach, which is like the product-based approach. Let's give this season one female-oriented show, was probably decided 6 months back, and then they had to shoot and reverse engineer the whole pipeline to get the character out. And also, biologically, we are very inclined to immediately catch human or animal characters which don't look real, So a lot of work needs to go into selling a shot, Like if you compare a Blade Runner, it's easy for like people who are like, oh wow, this is fantastic, this is marvelous, because they did a lot of cheating. They took footage on top of the character and they did a lot of tricks, used a lot of tricks. They did a lot of cheating to get it to that perfection, and still it's like 90% there, and there's still that 10% when she falls and you realize that she's not real. It's a CGI character. So, and that's because we are biologically we are aware when someone is not real, right? So you face that, and then you need years and months to sort of work on shots. For a show like She-Hulk, she is a completely CGI character. Hats off that they actually thought of making this show because it's needed. But probably a longer timeline would have helped sell certain shots and sequences better than it is right now. And maybe they probably didn't get a lot of time to design the character, because I heard a lot
Well,
of
I
feedback.
think that the writing of the show shouldn't be discussed because I am not really comfortable with that. I don't feel like they've done justice to what they intended to do. At least I think it's quite
Yeah.
like
I'm
they're
not talking about the
hammering a lot.
writing. I'm talking about, okay, okay. Right now, I'll introduce a fully CGI character into the for the audience to enjoy. I think that's where the approach started, which is good. But like when you come with that thought, then you listen to your team and you sort of take that time, because despite being under the same wing, the Star Wars franchise all look good because they are all under Lucas,
Yeah.
and they have
And even the series Obi-Wan also is, I think that was pretty well executed.
everything
Yeah.
that they do comes from an art project approach,
Yeah.
as opposed to like a product approach. So a Mandalorian, you watch 10 years down the line, it's not gonna stand out and look weird, because that effort, that thought has gone behind making it. But compared to any of the recent Marvel shows or films, if you look at even 2-3 years down the line, you'll be like, was the VFX so bad? Like, I saw Black Panther the other day and I was like, in the theater, they probably got away with most of the things. But when I look at it, I'm like, I can visibly see the problems in the shot, because they age very fast, because it was done at a, like, let's just get this release out sort of an approach, as opposed to what Lucasfilm has been doing for all over the years. Any of their films, still you marvel at how they approach the filmmaking. So I think that is the key difference. Your
There's a little
approach.
pun in there. You marvel at the work they do in Lucas Films projects.
That's been my observation. But yeah, even in India, when bad, like people easily say bad VFX or itna acha nahi tha, and I mean, I can tell, because like I used to be one of those people before starting out,
Yeah.
and I understand where artists really struggle to be able to give their 100%, because like more than anybody else who's watching the film and commenting on it, the artist who sent that shot which doesn't look 100% real lives with that pain throughout.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's my worst work. I don't even want to put it on my reel, because they are more aware of what they put out. So
Mhm.
it's tough. And like Vijesh had mentioned, we still don't have a life. People still work around the clock. That's the industry, and that's got more to do with, like I mentioned earlier, the boom that happened that not all of us were prepared for. I think even VFX artists sort of didn't see it coming.
Mm.
I mean, there are a lot more of us than we were 5 years ago, but it's still not enough, because the films and series count is just increasing each
Yeah.
day, and there are not enough artists. So
And a lot of artists are made to do work that they are not really acquainted with. Like if you give a plumber a carpenter's work, he's not going to be able to do it. He'll try, but it's still not his thing, right? So he's going to do some shoddy work on it and deliver it because he's like, I don't have a choice. So that's what's happening, I think. Like that's why I feel like it's very important to keep, like for VFX supervisors, to keep
Yeah.
track of which studios do what work best, and then give only that kind of work to them. This every all size fits one thing will not approach will not work. It has to be like films have to be broken down in greater detail, and producers have to be comfortable with having multiple vendors, especially VFX heavy films.
yeah.
True. And just my last question to you. So, as you said, VFX in general, rest assured that you'll not have a life. Uh, how do you guys keep yourself motivated through all of this?
That's something that
Therapy.
we Vijay is laughing about it. But yeah, I mean, it is a serious topic, so I would like to approach it that way, that we do. Until 2019, I was not even aware that I was facing a burnout, because I was just constantly at it. Uh, Fortunately or unfortunately, with the pandemic, a lot of new perspective came in, because you finally had the time to sort of sit with yourself and see where you were heading and why things didn't work out the way you thought it would. And I think that for me personally has made me realize that I needed to sort of now when I take projects, do I don't want to do it all. I've become very picky on like which projects do I want to do, which will really add to my show reel, which would really challenge me as an artist, which would really be something giving my whatever 2-3 months without sleeping while a time of my life, and that's something I think it's work. Like it's earlier we used to work on a project, then take a week's break, watch some films or chill, and then start the next, because generally there used to be that 1 or 2 weeks gap between production timelines, you know or we have sent something to the client, we are waiting for feedback, that would take about a week, and got that headspace. But now post the pandemic, I have personally become more conscious of what I feel like, okay, this is going to be really hectic. So I need to give my 100%. So I won't be able to do anything else. And that way I don't even add anything to my list, sort of set boundaries there. Okay, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to give all my time on this. And then whatever time I have for myself, it's going to be for myself. So plan things like that. But it is difficult. Like, it's besides us, there are also artists who have faced burnouts, and it's the best thing to do is just to be able to talk to them. Sometimes we'll start a session and we are not in the vibe to get to where we want to, but having conversations and sharing what you're going through really helps people open up, and I think that motivates one another. That's my personal experience. When you talk about it, it just gets a little easier. It doesn't solve any problems, but it lightens the load, so to say.
But all of these are actually comforts of being independent artists.
True.
We have that comfort because we've made that choice, but then there are many artists out there who don't have that choice. They're working within the production framework of like a big studio. They don't have these luxuries at all. For them, it's like, they have to fight for their days off. They have to fight for hours off in a day sometimes, and delivery time is always like havoc for everyone. But in the VFX houses, it's another level. It's like, I don't know when that will change. It's very tragic, But yeah, I mean, I guess it's also important in this day and age for at least people who are mindful of themselves to be accepting of therapy, because you need it. These, production timelines and deadlines and all that really take a toll on you. And sometimes you can't, sometimes you are left with these jitters even after a project, like no matter.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And for years, it's almost like PTSD, actually.
Yeah.
And I caught myself like early on when I was working on my initial few projects. I think those affect you the most because at that time you're so raw and you're trying to kind of find your footing.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I totally relate to that.
Yeah. That's a lot of like, I want to give my best, because as soon as you start out, you're like, I want to give my best, because this I used to have this attitude, and I think spoken about it before. Like, if this is my last release, then it has to be my best. And I used to wear it as a badge. And nowadays I've started taking it as like, okay, if this is my last release, it's fine, as long as this doesn't end up being my last release, because I'm putting so much stress on myself and the team.
Yeah.
Another thing that I understand that we are kind of privileged because we are independent, but I think we are also part of the industry. So us being mindful when an artist is not feeling to do something today, I just tell them, let's take a break. We don't have to do it. That I think is very essential. Like, if I start doing it, then hopefully my post supervisor will do it, and then hopefully the producers will do it, and everybody will like. I think that giving that space to artists is also needed. And we have, as a studio, started doing that. Like, if it's really technically challenging and today is not the day that it's gonna work out, we just give it another day. It's fine.
Yeah, we buy time. We speak to the clients. We explain to them why the process is so difficult and why it's like we need to educate them so that their expectations are also metered. And there's this one friend of mine, a CG supervisor, Varun Ramanna, but he's more than that. He's like a holistic, generalist, artist, everything. He's also, in a way, a spiritual guru, in a way. So he said this one thing, that we don't work in rocket science, we don't work in the health industry, and our deliveries do not kill people. Like, if we basically don't deliver on time, doesn't mean that somebody is going to die. Nobody's life is dependent on it. Maybe we might get a few harsh words from a producer or something like that, but delaying our delivery is not going to, like, really cause any issues. So if something's taking time, we need to explain to people and buy more time. If they're not willing to accept that, then give them whatever they want at whatever state it is, because they can't tell the difference most of the time. They're like, oh, I don't care. But for us, we have that additional eye of the technical and artistic, and we know what separates something from, like, that final pixel look. So he always says that it doesn't matter. Like, I'm sorry, I can't deliver it because it takes time. And if they can't give us that time, then, you know, I don't care. Like, I mean, like, you can stop caring about a shot. If it's not its best and they don't care about it, then you stop caring about it. If they just want a delivery, abhi de do, then it's like, ha, le lo. So
Yeah.
that happens a lot. Like,
Yeah.
and
And it's true,
we've
like
come to terms with it.
oftentimes where we've got the space from our clients is our product has been, the output has been really good, where we get that headspace, the timeline that we say, okay, I need 3 months, and I get those 3 months without including feedback and all those time being wasted, like full 3 months for production. My output has been the best. When that is respected, that boundary is respected, when I state it and it's respected, you get the best from me also, right? So whenever we've had that, it's worked, and whenever we've not had it, then maybe it's not my 100%, but that can happen on another project. It's okay. Fine.
Yeah.
True. I think on that note, I really want to say that we need to start treating VFX teams as artists, as we say, VFX artists and not slave labor.
Yeah.
That is one big distinction that needs to be made. But thank you so much, Yashoda and Vijesh. I've had a lovely, lovely time listening to the two of you talk about your work. And I hope we can resume. I think this is a very short period of time to talk about everything, because there's so much to talk about and there's so much I want to know. So I hope to talk soon again with the two of you. Thank you so much for being on this podcast.
We would love that. It was awesome talking to you as well.
Yeah, thank you for having us, man. So super honored to be interviewed and having a discussion with you. This has been fun, and it's great to talk about these issues. And like you mentioned,
yes,
there's so much more that we can explore on this subject, and we would be happy to have another conversation for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this video, then please like it, share it, comment on it, and subscribe to this channel so you're tuned in for our upcoming episodes.